I've decided to cluster the first couple of months together with similar weaves. Weaves that, although are not produced the same way, can easily be confused for one another, so I thought it best to clump them. In this case, what you're looking at is a type of weaving that's called kushiori, okay, for the weft thread in this case. Kushiori is a weave in which a comb is used to manipulate the fibers to create patterning. In the top sample, the kushiori technique using a comb was used to create this beautiful undulating wave pattern, very transparent gossamer type of silk. The white sample, on the other hand, is technically called mizuori, although it's the same technique. For those of you who are familiar with no theater costumes, you'll have come across this mizuori in the past. Keeping with the theme of kushiori, comb manipulated fiber, I've included two different varieties here. A kimono version, in which the warp threads in this case have been nudged side to side, and then also a heavier gold-wrapped thread in which the warp threads have been moved back and forth and was originally used for an obi. Here we see what's called namiori, and even though it looks very similar to the kushiori, this one was produced by preparing a series of undulating beading bars in different gradations to help create a repetitive pattern of waves. And then lastly, what I've presented within this cluster is a weave called yoroke ori. Yoroke means to stumble or meander or stagger, much like a drunkard might after a night of revelry. And the undulating lines in this case are created by a very unique reed and beater bar in which the tines are prepared in fan shapes, allowing the warp threads to be moved in and out at the discretion of the weaver. And the last within this cluster is a technique called tsukuiori. Tsukuiori makes use of a miniature shuttle to pick certain warp threads and basically create a tapestry weave. So you can see all of these techniques leave you with a manipulated warp or a manipulated weft. All appear to be somewhat similar in the final product, but each has a very different approach. These are the kinds of things we go over during our sessions, which I hope you'll be able to join us for. Now, moving right along, we have other samples such as kiribame. Kiribame is a quilting technique, but it's actually an inlay technique more than anything else, very uniquely Japanese. There is rozashi, which is an embroidery technique, several varieties of rozome, which is batik. We have one of my favorites, higetsumugi, in which the thrum threads are tied in such a way to leave a somewhat bearded effect on the fabric. There's a really fascinating technique included called mayusugata, in which the worms are laid out on a tray and allowed to meander to create a non-woven silk sheet, which is then dyed and prepared for garments. Included are samples of wazarasa, type of Japanese printing technique, unique to Japan. Tanzen is a type of fabric used in the padded men's clothing of the North. And then, as always, I like to end on a special note, and so I've included inden. Inden makes use of stencils very similar to those used for edokomon, to create minute patterns, although rather than dye or resist being pushed through, real lacquer is pushed through, normally onto deerskin, and this was used in olden times for the garments and suits of armor worn by warriors, but in more contemporary times, the same techniques were applied to silk and used in kimono. So I hope you've enjoyed this presentation. I hope it piques your interest, and I hope you'll consider joining us. And feel free to refer to my website for more information. See you soon. Bye-bye.